Yo, what's going down? What's going on, everybody? We're gonna do matchups very, very, very early, and it's gonna be really quick. This is gonna be in audio form, so there's not gonna be a lot of fade in, fade outs with people's pictures, like I usually do, because due to the power ranking segment, which will be up either Friday or Saturday, it's gonna take a while because I haven't done it yet, so I'm trying to figure out some notes, what I want to put on each team. But without further ado, we're going to go right into the matchups for the week. This is, again, in audio form. Now, with these matchups for the week, one thing I want to say, guys, is when I'm looking at some of these matchups right now, there's a lot of rivalries, even though it's not rivalry week. We're 1 week away from that. But there's a lot of rivals that are not like in the same division. There's a history involved with I see at least three of them, so I'm going to touch on that. And without further ado, we're going to start with the rivalry that is talked about between pretty much these two, and it's as far as smack talking is concerned, this is definitely one of those rivalries where I look at it and I'm like, I love it, but it's a game that, everybody looks at it and be like, oh, why is this really a rivalry? But between these two, there's something going on. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Vintage Harsh taking on Allen. For them, this is like a big deal for these two when they go at it. So I'm going to try to hype it up as best as I can, guys. Let's get right into it. Derek Carr taking on Kirk Cousins. All right. Start with Allen first. Allen, you gotta have a breath of fresh air after Kirk Cousins somewhat came alive last week. Not bad. As for Vintage Harsh, Derek Carr has been Derek Carr. Not really much else to say there. Cousins at home against Cleveland to me really, really smells like it's a very, very appetizing matchup. Derek Carr goes to the road at Baltimore. Now, I have this weird feeling, and I don't think the Redskins are officially back, but I think because of the Cleveland Browns, and we know it's the Cleveland Browns, I think Cousins has potential to put up a 30-point game. Derek Carr did put up 30 points, however, against the Baltimore Ravens. What I'll say about the Baltimore Ravens is that they haven't played anybody good. We know that's a fact. Buffalo, Cleveland, and Jacksonville are not good teams. They're not. I think for Derek Carr, though, he probably is going to have success. It's going to be interesting to see which receiver is going to be the one this week, though. But I give the slight edge to Kirk Cousins because he's at home, whereas Derek Carr has to travel to the road. So give me the edge for quarterback on Allen. Travis Benjamin and Jarvis Landry taking on Tyrell Williams and Golden Tate. This is a very interesting matchup, but I gotta give the landslide edge to Harsh in this one. Now, Travis Benjamin against the New Orleans Saints, who have very shaky corners. But the same could also be said for Tyrell Williams. However, I think the way San Diego has been running their offense right now, they're taking more deep shots with Travis Benjamin than they are Tyrell Williams. I would like to see the playbook open up a little bit more for Tyrell Williams. The only thing I'm seeing with Tyrell Williams is crossing routes and drags. I would like, with his size at 6'4", I mean, this guy has potential to put up 16-point games, but to me, it just seems like their big play guy is Travis Benjamin. So until I see otherwise, I gotta go with Benjamin in the matchup on that. I'm sorry, Allen, but Golden Tate to me is like the fourth option. I know the targets are there, but you can't like what you're seeing out of Golden Tate. Therefore, Jarvis Landry, I think, is one of the most consistent floor guys you could have. And in a matchup Thursday night against Cincinnati, he'll probably still get his. Running backs. David Johnson and, I think I'm reading this correctly due to injuries, James White taking on Jeremy Hill and Matt Jones. Now, David Johnson alone could have a very, very big game. Now, this should have been the number one running back taken off the board, but I think people were scared of the hype a little bit. But, hey, Harsh, at least you got something going for your team because David Johnson, man, it's a wonderful, wonderful pick because he could kind of cover James White's ass. Because if Arizona at home, against Los Angeles. It could be a interesting matchup, but I think David Johnson definitely has a great game. That 18 points, I could see him getting 18 and up. Jeremy Hill and Matt Jones are very touchdown dependent. Very touchdown dependent. But if you look at the matchups, the game script kind of seems like both of them should score. And James White, I don't think does anything. Believe it or not, I'm giving the running back edge to Allen because I do see Jeremy Hill getting a TD, and believe it or not, Matt Jones probably will also score. James White, though, I don't have very much optimism for. Julius Thomas against Jimmy Graham. Now, Bortles has been really bad. Other than Allen Robinson, I think every Jaguar other than Allen Robinson has taken a hit. And I know it's the Indianapolis Colts, and they probably are going to give up some yardage to Julius Thomas. And with that being said, Allen Robinson, in an interview before the season started, he was asked, actually, you know what? I won't even get into that. We're not even going to talk about Allen Robinson right now. We'll go for Brian's team on that one. But Julius Thomas, you know, there is some potential to have some decent amount of points on a touchdown. So I'll probably project a touchdown for Julius Thomas. Jimmy Graham is an interesting factor here. A Jimmy Graham resurgence might happen. The New York Jets struggle against deep threats and tight ends. I can tell you that flat out. So if Russell Wilson is under center, I would not be surprised if Jimmy Graham kind of had a really nice game. Now, the last time Jimmy Graham played the New York Jets, it was with Drew Brees throwing him the ball. It's a different type of offense now, but Jimmy Graham was able to get by the defense. I would not be surprised, though, if Jimmy Graham had a big game. I'm going to have to give a draw on the tight end matchups. Tajay Sharp and Demaryius Thomas taking on Le'Veon Bell and Dennis Pitta. Now, unfortunately for Tajay Sharp, because of the offense he plays in, his upside is very capped. It is. Tennessee just can't get anything going when they have to pass the ball. They have to jump out to a lead and hold that lead. I'm pretty down on Tajay Sharp. Demaryius Thomas, it was nice to see over 100 and a touchdown last week. And going against the Bucs, where Brian Quick and Tavon Austin took him over the top. You know what? I'll probably project another touchdown for Demaryius Thomas. Somebody came out, it was one expert that said that when Denver's on the road, they tend to pass a lot more. So, hey, maybe Demaryius gets on the board in this one. Le'Veon Bell and Dennis Pitta. Le'Veon Bell is back. You got to go with the workload on that one. And Dennis Pitta back, kind of, I guess. Now, with the Baltimore Ravens, if you look at target shares, Steve Smith is number 1, Pitta is number 2, and Mike Wallace is number 3. I kind of think that's the way it's going to project going forward. Nothing has changed to change my mind. The flex matchup is very, very strong with Allen because of the Le'Veon Bell. I got to go with Allen. Now, if we look at nothing to talk about with kickers and defenses. So I gave the edge advantage to Allen on a lot of these guys. However, because the teams are kind of set up very, very odd, like for example, Le'Veon Bell could be switched with Matt Jones, and then I might give the edge to Harsh. Keys to victory, Travis Benjamin needs to score. This is for Harsh's side, by the way. Travis Benjamin needs a deep threat touchdown. Jarvis Landry needs to hit a consistent floor. I think David Johnson needs a big 2-touchdown game like he did last week, and I think the tight end advantage needs to happen with Harsh. Keys to victory for Allen. Le'Veon Bell's got to show up and be Le'Veon Bell. You have a lot of touchdown-dependent running backs, which I will get to in the power ranking segment. So Jeremy Hill and Matt Jones both need to hit for touchdowns. And I think if Le'Veon Bell, Jimmy Graham, Jeremy Hill, and Matt Jones score touchdowns with Kirk Cousins meeting the projections, I think that's your key to victory. So, what do I think will happen in this one? Believe it or not, I think the top half of the rosters are not bad. But in this one, this is tough. because David Johnson could cancel out Le'Veon Bell. If you don't look at how the teams are set up, I'm actually struggling with this one, but I like Bell's matchup and I like Johnson's matchup, but I think that this comes down to Benjamin and Landry having really big games, which I do believe in. And Demaryius Thomas is no slouch against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Give me harsh. Okay, our next matchup of the week. It's a story of two guys. One seems to have the worst luck in fantasy football history. The other can't seem to find which players to start. I'm talking about Johnny J. Fresh taking on Paul Percall. Here we go. Russell Wilson taking on Eli Manning. I'm going to say one thing right here. Oh, wait a minute. I got to backtrack on a second. But going back. Until Russell Wilson looks healthy enough, I don't see him having those 30-point games where you expected to be all season long. I know the Jets are not as scared, but the Jets can pressure Russell Wilson without a doubt. The Jets front is going to get after him a lot in this game. There's reports that we don't even know if he's going to play. He probably will play, though. And it could be a decent day. Eli Manning, we know the struggles against Minnesota historically. So it comes down to the health of Russell Wilson and the historic struggles of Eli Manning. I can't feel greatly optimistic with both, so I have to give it a draw. Mike Evans and Terrell Pryor Sr. taking on DeAndre Hopkins and newly acquired Alshon Jeffrey. DeAndre Hopkins historically against Tennessee is amazing. And because of the Denver factor of Mike Evans, and I think Mike Evans finds the end zone because I love Chris Harris. He's probably the best corner in the league man-to-man wise, although I still kind of want to make the case for Vontae Davis because of the defense that he plays on. But despite the fact, I think Evans could kind of use his size in the end zone to find a touchdown. But I do not see over 100 yards in a touchdown. I see something more like 40 to 50 in a touch for Mike Evans. Terrell Pryor Sr., is probably going to be doing everything in this game. You never know what's going to happen with Terrell Pryor. But I like Hopkins' matchup a lot. And Alshon Jeffrey against Darius Slay. That, you never know. It could be money. Because Slay's been a little off this year. But I think there's greater yardage totals and touchdown totals with Paul's receivers, so give me Paul. Lamar Miller and LeGarrette Blount against Latavius Murray and Cameron Artis-Payne. Johnny by a landslide. No need to discuss. Dwayne Allen and Robert Gronkowski. Give me Gronk if he suits up. Here's the thing. If Gronk is unable to suit up, put in Eric Ebron, and then we kind of have a draw. I still think if Gronk is out there with any scrub quarterback, he's probably going to find the end zone. I can't guarantee that for Dwayne Allen. Jack Doyle's actually been very impressive, and if I'm not, and I believe he has more fantasy points than Dwayne Allen. So I think this is kind of a really annoying tight end committee. Mike Wallace and Gio Bernard taking on Willie Snead and Unknown. Willie Snead is going to score a touchdown in this game, or he's going to have a good game because San Diego's got great outside corners in Casey Hayward and Jason Verrett, and they can't defend inside. You guys saw what T.Y. Hilton did at the end of that game. They struggle inside. That's where Snead makes his pay. So I like Snead. Game script would say that Mike Wallace would do well against Oakland, but it's interesting because apparently David Amerson is ranking inside the top 5 for corners. For some reason, he's had great success when he's moved to Oakland from Washington. Gio Bernard against Miami, I don't know. I can't predict the Bengals, but if I'm looking at Miami, it looks like it's a Jeremy Hill type of game, not a Gio Bernard type of game, because I did predict Jeremy Hill, but you never know. Cincinnati could kind of like destroy him. And we have Unknown. And Paul's flex, I would assume Victor Cruz, but I don't like Victor Cruz against the Vikings, so I guess give flex edge to Johnny by default, kinda. Okay. Arizona against Los Angeles can kind of be really good, so I want to mention that. Let's try to pick a winner here. I think Eli Manning throws a lot of picks. Historically, that's what happens when he plays the Vikings. I do think 1 or 2 touchdowns, though, is acceptable. Hopkins is going to have himself a great game, but when I look at everything else on Paul's roster right now, to me it screams out 13, 10, 8, 14, 17 maybe from Snead, and then like a 7-point game for Victor Cruz. I don't know. I think there's a lot more upside with Johnny's roster. And if we're going by bad luck, good luck, gotta go with Jay. Okay. This next matchup. Two teams finally got their first win of the season last week. And now look to get that second win. I'm talking about Rab Curfey, Shipping Curfey, taking on Lewis Todd. Well, the claims were placed, and a quarterback was claimed due to Aaron Rodgers being on a bye, and that's Phillip Rivers, which is probably the safest guy to claim, taking on Dak Prescott. Interesting to see Dak Prescott get a start here. You know what? It really, really, really stinks because if Dez Bryant doesn't play, this is going to be, unless something magical happens, doesn't look too good. But let's get into it. Dak Prescott against San Francisco. I think he puts up like 20 to like 25 most. I don't see a big game, but that's if he's on the money, which should be the case because San Francisco is going to run like they're going to run like maybe 5 plays all game because the way they just go down is like their plays only take a minute, whereas Dallas's takes up like 10 minutes because they're one of the most boring offenses in the league. So Dak definitely has 2 touchdown potential in this game to get him into that 20-point mark. Phillip Rivers, on the other hand, when he's at home, he does a lot better. We all know that. What you saw against Jacksonville is probably what's going to happen. I don't think the yardage will be there, but I do see like 3 touchdowns is definitely in the making for him in this one. New Orleans just can't stop anybody, and honestly, San Diego's defense has looked much improved than what they were last year. I think the Chargers flat out win the game, and that would mean something like 200 and I'll say 30 yards, maybe with 3 touchdown potential. So I got to go with Rivers on the quarterback edge. Okay, I've been saying it for like the last 2 weeks. Odell Beckham and Amari Cooper taking on Des Bryant and Allen Hurns. Now, interesting statistic here. I'm going to start with Coffee's wideouts. Amari Cooper, to be quite honest with you guys, I think him and Beckham are both due for touchdowns. Beckham, on the other hand, I do not like that matchup against Minnesota. But who knows? Maybe this will be like the worst matchup that Beckham has had, and maybe he can score. And something crazy like that could happen. And I would not be surprised in the least bit with the temper tantrum that he threw against the Washington Redskins. You know something happens like, look, I want the ball. Where are my 11 to 15 targets that I got last year? And considering Minnesota, there it goes again, considering that Minnesota schemes and they like to do all these crazy stuff on defense, which confuses quarterbacks. I would not be surprised if this is a game where Eli's just like, I don't know what to do, so let me tuck it to Beckham. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened at all in this game. There's going to be a lot of turnovers, though. That's definitely going to happen, but I think Beckham, if this looks like it could be a Beckham game. So that could happen. Amari Cooper, there was an interesting stat that got thrown out there when I was researching that said, and I don't know, this could be a coincidence. Baltimore does amazing against the number 2 wide receivers. I don't know, or 1. I don't remember who, but we don't know if that's Cooper or Crab. Because I feel like when Cooper doesn't do anything, it's Crab. When Cooper does something, most of the time Crab calms down a little bit. But I like those receiving options better. If Des Bryant was to suit up at 100%, I love this matchup against San Fran. And Allen Hurns is actually kind of good with Vontae Davis being back. Vontae Davis has just owned Allen Robinson. So and Hurns had a big game last year when that was in play. But Hurns has been very, very quiet. So I got to go with Coffee. Devonta Freeman and Charles Sims taking on Jerick McKinnon and Carlos Hyde. I tried to buy low on Hyde, but he scored 2 touchdowns, so oh well. Devonta Freeman and Charles Sims. Freeman looks like he's back. He's clearly the best running back on the Atlanta Falcons roster. I think Coleman's a great number 2 option, and Coleman could probably start somewhere else, but I think Freeman is still the guy. He's at home in the Dome, which is great for somebody who likes to make his cuts. McKinnon against the Giants. I think it's an average matchup. I like Carlos Hyde against Dallas. I don't like Charles Sims against Denver. The thing that could go in favor for Mr. Sims, though, however, is the fact that he could catch a lot of passes out of the backfield, but I'm not buying it. If Freeman was to have one of those big, 20-plus games, that could be the difference maker in this one. I think the safer RB plays are with Lewis, but I think there's a lot better upside with Coffees. But I'm really struggling with it. It's the Sims matchup that makes me very, very hesitant. I give a slight edge. A slight, very, very teeny tiny slight edge to Lewis's running back department in this one. Oh, God. Excuse me. Colby Fleener taking on Travis Kelce. Colby Fleener, yeah, he did good, I guess. But now he goes on the road at San Diego taking on Travis Kelce on the road in Pittsburgh. I really don't like both of these dudes. I feel like Travis Kelce's a decent tight end, but he doesn't get the targets that he should be getting. And with Pitt's kind of interesting. I feel like they don't. Well, actually, they really haven't. Other than Jordan Reed, they haven't played any tight ends that are kind of relevant. Fleener against San Diego. I don't know. I'm gonna say draw. I can't say that one is gonna be better than the other. Okay. Christine Michael and Tyler Lockett, Seacarricks, taking on Tavon Austin and Fozzie Whitaker. Fozzie Whitaker. Tavares Cadet looked pretty nice in a receiving game role, but I'm not going to go out of my way to say Fozzie Whitaker is going to have a great game. Tavon Austin is impossible to predict. So I don't even know with that. Christine Michael against the Jets is not a good matchup at all. I don't see him doing much. Tyler Lockett has potential to go over the top and burn Revis for a touchdown. I think that if I had to bank on something happening, most likely it's Tyler Lockett burning Revis for a touchdown. But I will say that Tyler Lockett's final stat line will probably be something like 3 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown, and that's it. But he's going to make his money on one play, and I can't say that these two would do it, so I got to go to Rob Coffee on that one. New England's D at home against Buffalo. Call me crazy, but I feel like if Watkins sits, I feel like Buffalo might be able to move the ball because their game plan would probably just to shut down LaShawn McCoy. But I honestly think that Tyrod Taylor actually, with doing this without Sammy Watkins, like he did last week, I know it was 1 week, you never know what could happen. And Baltimore against Oakland, I don't like that matchup at all. Okay, time to pick a winner. Okay, there's a lot of explosive potential with Coffee, whereas I think there's a okay floor with Lewis, but it all depends on, do I think stuff will explode or not? Keys to victory for Coffee. If Lockett is playing, he needs to get that deep bomb against Revis, which probably will happen as a Jets fan. Freeman's got to be Freeman. Beckham's got to, the yardage is there, but I think a touchdown needs to happen. And Cooper, it comes down to those big three that you see going down the roster. If Dez isn't healthy, this is going to be very tough for Lewis to find a way to win. But I do like Rivers. Rivers needs to get at least 3 touchdowns to find a serviceable lead. Dez has to be healthy. Allen Hurst actually has a decent matchup. I like Hyde against Dallas, actually. I think that's warranted around 13-17, give or take. But I just like the explosive potential with Robert Coffee in this one. Okay, back on that whole rivalry, thing that I was talking about. This rivalry goes way back. It's been one of the unwritten rivalries, but we know that this is definitely a game where after the preseason, after draft, both of these guys looked at that schedule and circled week 4. And this is not that both of these teams don't like each other. I can tell you that much. Whose ass is going to get kicked in this one? I don't know. We're talking about the champ himself, Matthew Morris, taking on Brian Bonney. We have one of 2 undefeated teams left. That's the champ, taking on Mr. Brian Bonney. Does Brian Bonney have what it takes to dethrone the greatest fantasy defense of all time in points allowed? But he's been on a hot streak, ladies and gentlemen. I can't remember what happened in the regular season, what his last game was. But needless to say, there's at least a 7-game winning streak. Is it 7? Yeah, there's at least a 7-game winning streak riding on through last season with the champ. He's still flying high, man. And superstitious things. Let's get into it. Blake Bortles and Cam Newton. Blake Bortles has been a major disappointment. I think people were down on Blake Bortles in this year because they thought that maybe with Chris Ivory coming, there'd be some more goal line touchdowns, but like he's just been bad. So I got to give the edge on Cam Newton against Atlanta, definitely. Give me Cam in this one. Although this would look like a big Blake Bortles bounce back game, but what I've seen so far, I'm not optimistic. A.J. Green and Brandon Marshall taking on Allen Robinson and Will Fuller the fourth, or the fifth. Excuse me. Will Fuller the fifth, I think? Whatever. Okay. A.J. Green has been extremely quiet, as he does. I think A.J. Green is not he's not like in the top. He's like just outside that top tier because he does get shut down against good corners. That's just what happens. But this is the Miami Dolphins Thursday night. I think Green has a solid game. It's interesting to see what's going to happen with Seattle's defense and who they game plan against because I do think that Marshall still kind of have a solid day. But then we look at Brian's side, Allen Robinson and Will Fuller. The guy I'm the downest on the most for this week, Allen Robinson. Here's why. This preseason coming up into training camp, Allen Robinson was in an interview on NFL.com, and then they asked him, and they said, who's the guy who gives you the most trouble as a wide receiver? And he goes, I play against him 2 years, and that's Vontae Davis. He said, I tried everything, and he wasn't biting on anything. I couldn't get open. I couldn't even use my size against him. He's like, that's a guy I really respect. And you saw the numbers, man. He didn't really do anything. Well, Vontae Davis is back. He's not at 100%, but the instincts will still be there for a cornerback. If Robinson is to do anything against Vontae Davis, it's going to be on a double move for a touchdown, but as of right now, Allen Robinson doesn't have his number. Will Fuller, on the other hand, I think can score a touchdown over the top, definitely against Tennessee. They've been so bad. Tennessee just been awful. Michael Crabtree was the one who had a good game, not Cooper, which we all thought was going to happen, but regardless, they have two solid wideouts, and so does the Houston Texans. Brock Osweiler is just a guy who hopes that somebody on the sideline is going to get open. He's not that great of a quarterback, but needless to say, that's why they reached for Will Fuller. But, I mean, wow. I like A.J. Green's matchup. Brandon Marshall, I think, is the biggest question mark. Allen Robinson, I don't like, and I like Will Fuller. I'm going to have to give a draw on the receiver department on this one. Frank Gore and Tevin Coleman taking out Theo Riddick and either, my guess, Rashad Jennings or Orleans Darkwa. That's probably how he's going to play it. Frank Gore against Jacksonville. Frank Gore he doesn't do anything. Even if he does do a touchdown, it's like 50-something yards. Theo against Chicago. I think this could be a bounce-back PPR game for Theo Riddick. Since that 25-point outburst, he's been quiet. I actually think Dwayne Washington kind of has a decent game as well in this one. I'm not super huge on Theo Riddick. And I don't like any of the guys, the Vikings, the Giants backs against the Vikings. I don't like any of them. And then that leaves Tevin Coleman. He's questionable. If he suits up, I think I have to give the edge to Matt, surprisingly, and the RB department. Jordan Reed versus Kyle Rudolph. Oh, if this is the week Jordan Reed comes back, I'll say yes. He looked decent last week. Give me the Redskins at home. Give me maybe not Pierre Garçon, but give me every receiving threat on the Skins at home. I like that one. So give me the tight end edge to Brian. Oh, wow. Okay, we're going to get into this one. Philip Dorsett and Ted Ginn Jr. taking on Emmanuel Sanders and Jamison Crowder. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers because what am I talking about? Wow, I lost my train of thought. Wow. Come on, Nick, spit it out. I know. I'm going to get there in a minute. Holy crap. What Power Rankings podcast. Wow, it took me that long to figure it out. Sorry. The Power Rankings podcast. There's There are two guys that could be kind of optimistic for Brian's team going forward, and that's Jamison Crowder and Emmanuel Sanders. Now, Crowder, I don't know what to think about Crowder. I think he's a great guy penning the match, but this is not a matchup that scares you. Jamison Crowder leads every wide receiver, I think, in red zone targets. It's so weird. And Emmanuel Sanders. Funny, I want to start with Brian's receivers. Emmanuel Sanders pulled the diva card that he learned from Antonio Brown 3 seasons ago. Hey, I want the ball more and the offense should revolve around me kind of card. And he had 2 touchdowns last week. If Sanders, it's against Tampa too. I think Sanders is nice. I think Crowder is nice. I think both find pay dirt in this one. I think Dorsett against Jacksonville. Dorsett is primed for a great spot. Maybe he scores. Ted Ginn is that makes me nervous a little bit because I hate going against deep threats that could have a decent matchup. And with the script pointing to Trufant on Kelvin Benjamin, Ginn could probably sneak around somewhere for a deep bomb. But I think there's more guaranteed matchup potential with Brian's flexes, so I like that. Oh. Denver traveling at Tampa. Seattle traveling to the New York Jets. Turnover galore, ladies and gentlemen, for both of these defenses, especially if Seattle's up because Fitzpatrick just gives away the game. So, does Brian stop the streak of Matty Moe? Or does the Matt Morris defense continue to strike fear in its opponents? Only one team has broken over 100 against Matty Moe. Until the curse is broken, I gotta go with the champ, Brian. I'm very superstitious about this. Something's up here. Give me Matty Moe. Okay. We gotta quote Mr. Joe Buck, which I really don't do at all. Time for America's Game of the Week. Alright, for fantasy standpoints. Coming off of the second most points in a week and the Boss number 2 history, which was so, I mean, for me it was awesome to see. Probably not for Max. But my team, the Commish, taking on the other undefeated team in the league, Mr. Andre Jones, Southside Shawties. Now, this is a rivalry that goes way back as well. Since Andre came into the league, he was in my division for 3 straight years in a row. Andre was always the guy. Historically, I think I might have 3 wins all time and a tie against this guy. So historically, you could play the history card in that one. I wouldn't mind if somebody bought that up. But this is a guy. He was in my division last year too. I think I've always been in his division, other than this year. Now that I think about it. Oh no, there was only 2 years out. This is the second year I'm not in his division. This matchup probably would live up to the hype, and so let's get into it. Matt Stafford against Drew Brees. Now the caution is for Drew Brees that he doesn't play that well on the road, and we know that he kind of was very, very quiet against the New York Giants. And then we got Matthew Stafford himself on the road in Chicago. I kind of want to say a draw on this one. I'm never going to count out Drew Brees even though it's on the road. But I think both guys would fit evenly. Tony AB and T.Y. Hilton taking on Julio and Brandon Cooks. Julio was very, very quiet. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's an injury thing or maybe he just wasn't in their game plan at all. Maybe they just decided to run the ball all game. But you got to think that he would bounce back. And AB. These are guys, the top 3 wideouts. Drafted. T.Y. Hilton against Jacksonville. Brandon Cooks against San Diego. The only thing that worries me about Cooks is when he's lined up on the outside, Verrett, and Casey Hayward. That's why I think it's going to be a Willie Snead type of game, but I could be wrong, though. I mean, and T.Y. Hilton is on pace to lead the league in targets, somebody said. Him and Brown, I think, are both on pace to have a lot of targets. So, and the Jacksonville matchup isn't that daunting at all, so you never know with that one. When you look at these guys that are at elite talent level, you got to go with the matchups, I guess. So I guess I'll give the edge to me. Running backs, we had a big trade that went down today. Paul, I can't believe you didn't accept mine, but I'm not. It's okay, bro. It's okay. Melvin Gordon and Jordan Howard have great matchups, but I got to play the respect card at what DeMarco Murray is doing right now. This is a guy I really, really wanted. I flat out said he was going to return to form. It's a better running back system. It's more fits his style. And now newly acquired C.J. Anderson. This could look good. I mean, these are both running backs that can finish within the top 10 this season, without a doubt. I got to give the edge to Dre. Greggy Olsen and Hunter Henry. I got Greg Olsen against Atlanta. I just feel like that's a great matchup, so I'll give the edge to him. Although Hunter Henry could be sneaky for a TD, but you give old reliable, as he likes to call him. Dougie Fresh, Doug Baldwin, and Marvin Jones taking on Michael Crabtree and Vincent Jackson. Crabtree, I think, is going to be this year's Eric Decker, and I always said that he was like a step below Decker, but Decker's TD streak ended, and Crabtree doesn't get a TD every game, but he's just so consistent at getting like 10 to 12 at least. Vincent Jackson, however, yeah. So with that, because of the Vincent Jackson factor, I'll say, looking at it, you would think that the edge would go to myself. Okay, we only talk about defenses if they're elite, and Minnesota is they're putting up freaking quarterback numbers, man. 26, 17, and 30. That's something you get out of a quarterback. Those are like Matt Stafford numbers. Okay. This is going to be a fun game to keep tabs on. I can say that without a doubt. It's going to be America's Game of the Week. I said last week that the keys to victory for my team in general are you need at least, to play it safe, you need 2 of the 4 wideouts to hit, because if they hit, it's a huge game. And I had all 4 hits, so I mean that was last week. But I'm still gonna stick to that script, and if the running backs kind of hit their projections, it could look pretty good for the keys to victory to myself. And Minnesota is just an extra bonus. As for Andre's team, Breeze has to come through on the road. I think that's number 1. Julio can't be quiet. Brandon Cooks has to take advantage of the matchup. Tampa Bay is good yards per carry wise, but I don't think that matters with a running back like C.J. Anderson, who's going to get volume. J.J. Swap is out for the season, which means that DeMarco Murray looks like he could be primed for a big game, but it doesn't matter because they don't have Dexter McCluster anymore, so when they're behind by a lot, this is the guy who's going to get the dump off. So you would think that he still finishes strong in this one. And Greg Olsen, I think, is like the one thing that really needs to happen to make him feel comfortable. You know I don't pick the games, guys, but the week 4, again, the power ranking segment will be up Friday or Saturday, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again, guys. Peace.